So this is the Tamron 35-150, and this car actually is not for this. This is gonna be for the next video, so subscribe if you're not already, and you'll see some stuff with that, and it'll be really awesome. But this lens, I mean, I pre-ordered this thing sight unseen before I had seen a single image from this lens, and there are 3 reasons why this lens just completely blew me away.
All right, what's going on, guys? Dan Watson. And when I tell you that this is going to be a pretty crazy week, believe me, there is a ton of stuff coming in right now that I can't wait to show you, so stay tuned. But yeah, that first reason that I pre-ordered this lens is that it gave me more zoom range, and since having the flexibility of being able to zoom is really the main reason to use the zoom lens over a prime lens, which usually offers better quality, wider apertures, things like that. Think about it for a second. So your typical 24-70 is under a 3x zoom, typical 70-200 under a 3x zoom, but the 35-150, a 4.25x zoom range, which means I'm getting more benefit to having a zoom lens, and there's a better chance I'm gonna find the shot and get the shot I want at the focal range I want without having to change lenses. And if you guys have been following me at all on IG, which if you're not, definitely come say hi because I'm doing some really awesome shoots right now. But you would have seen that I am using this lens a lot over the past couple weeks especially. Now, number 2 is that the focal range for this is arguably way more useful than a 24-70. So for example, most people already have a wide angle lens. In fact, Sony makes 3 wide angle 16-35s now, I think, including that new F4 model that everybody's talking about that just came out. So if you already have a wide angle lens, I'm really fine with this starting out around 35mm. Plus, let's get a bit practical with this one. So your eyes typically see around 35mm as about a lens focal length. So anything wider than 35 kind of feels wide angle, feels expansive, and anything tighter than that is going to feel more compressed or zoomed in. So if I'm about to take a picture or a video and I'm deciding on a focal length to use, I'm thinking to myself, how do I want this shot to feel? So I'm grabbing a wider than 35 lens if I want it to feel more expansive than what my eyes would typically see. About a 35-50mm if I want it to feel more normal or natural to how the eye would see it. And if I want to focus in or get some more details, I want that visual separation. So I'm going to go with something tighter, usually in that like 85-135 range. So I feel like starting out with 35mm makes a lot more sense because that's typically where I'm kind of planning out my shots when I'm artistically thinking about how I want it to feel. Plus, I'm finding that with this lens in my bag, there are very few times that I actually need a 70-200. So I'm able to free up some bag space with this one and replace my 70-200 with this 35-150. Now, number 3 on this is probably my favorite because this is where Tamron innovated the most. So yeah, not only are you getting more zoom, but you're getting a wider aperture, and typically those two things do not go together. But even without those, the quality and features of this lens were just way better than I expected. And when you guys see what I am about to show you, I think you guys are going to agree. So let's get on to talking about this lens a bit. But before we get to that, this video is sponsored by Omaze, and they are giving you a chance to win a Tesla Model X Plaid, which I actually did some shoots with a slightly older model, Tesla Model X, and I'm editing the video for that now, so stay tuned. Now, Omaze, if you haven't heard of them, gives away one-of-a-kind prizes and experiences while donating money to chosen charities across the world. And this prize that you can win is the new Tesla Model X Plaid, which comes with the all-new interior design, the updated exterior styling, and the specs on this. 1,020 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds with 313 miles of range. The interior too is also stunning because you have that glass panoramic roof, that signature 17-inch cinematic display, which you can use to watch a movie on with a 22-speaker sound system. Now, your donation will support the charity Give Power and 501c3. So for your chance to win this Model X Plaid and support a great cause, go to omaze.com/Dan Watson. Now, the build quality of this is absolutely amazing. This is not a small and lightweight lens for sure, but it's extremely well built, and even after having this for months, there's really no wear and tear on this lens at all, which kind of speaks to it being a much higher quality lens. And what we don't typically see on a lens like this is so much customization. So you have 3 custom buttons around the lens, plus this 3-step custom function switch, which is the coolest thing ever, with a USB-C port for future firmware updates and for programming this. And it's a programming feature where things go from awesome to just mind-blowing. So first of all, you can change the focus ring to be a more linear response, and you can also choose just how much rotation you want with that response. You don't see that very often, but you can also program the buttons, and with that 3-step switch, you can actually have each button do 3 different things. And one of them, which is really cool, is the ability to set a custom focus position or a rack focus. And you can choose the speed that the lens is going to use during that rack focus. Literally, you just hold down the button for about 2 seconds, you program in that point, focus to the new point, lock it in by holding for another 2 seconds, and then every time you press a button, it will just rack focus between those 2 positions with perfect precision at the speed that you programmed. It took like 10 seconds to program this entire feature, and if you're a video shooter and you didn't just hit buy now on this lens, I don't know what you're waiting on, because that is absolutely next level. Also, I was really curious, like at what point this lens would change from like f2 to f2.8. And we do a pretty quick change from about f2 to f2.2. I'd say it's around 35 millimeters, but that f2.2 will hold all the way up to 60 millimeters, and 2.5 goes up past 75 millimeters. So this is going to give you a 1/3 stop to 1 stop advantage over your typical 24 to 70, but obviously image quality is where this lens needs to stand out, especially for me to use it instead of another lens like the 24 to 70 G Master. And this is probably what impressed me the most. So at 35 millimeters, this lens was sharper than my Sony 24 to 70 f2.8 GM at f2.8, and at 70 millimeters, again, it beats the Sony, and really through the entire zoom range, it had solid performance overall, even while shooting wide open, and I wasn't running across any issues with CA. The only thing I will say is that flare can be a bit excessive. I happen to like a bit of flare, so as long as it's pretty soft, which it is in this lens, I don't mind it. However, you will definitely see it if you're shooting into the sun, but if you're not shooting into the sun, I wasn't seeing any issues. Now, bokeh also looks really solid on this lens. It's probably not quite as dreamy as a few prime lenses, but it's still very soft, not really busy at all. None of those like onion rings or anything going on. Now, when it comes to focusing, that's always the area that you're really concerned about when you're going into most third-party lenses. This does have a high-speed linear focusing motor, which is great. However, it did have a lot of really heavy glass, but it seems to be keeping up extremely well. It can rack focus almost instantly. Focus speeds are incredible for a lens with this much glass in it. And it is near silent, even with really intense focus moves. I'm also not seeing much in the way of focus breathing at all, especially at those longer focal lengths. Although with a maximum magnification of 1.8 times, you're not exactly focusing on things really close to this lens. Now, I guess you could say that there is a downside to this lens, and that's that it's pretty heavy. It's also a bit large compared to like a 24 to 70, but if you're considering that this lens usually means I don't need a 70-200, it also means my bag is weighing way lighter and it takes up significantly less space than a 70-200, so a win for me. Plus, this actually weighs less than like Sony's old 70-200, about the same as their new one. So just for a little bit of an example for you, it's a heavy lens, but not more than you're used to if you own lenses like that. So obviously the big question though is if you should actually buy this lens. And I know for me, the answer is 100% yes, this is every bit as good as I hoped it would be, and it should be on your list of things to buy. Now, practically, it depends a little bit. So I absolutely love this lens for video shooters, especially if you're on a tripod. This lens is giving you so many more focus options with all of that customization, focus pulls, linear response, manual focus. It's game changing. It's a bit heavy for gimbal work. I've actually thrown this on a gimbal at 150 millimeters and it does work just fine. But I would say maybe a 24-70 is a bit more useful if you're spending a lot of your time on a gimbal. Now, if you're a photographer, again, I think this is a solid choice for you. The image quality is holding up, focus speeds are holding up to pro level lenses, and the focal range on this is far more useful than like a 24-70. Plus you get that f2 on the wide end, which is really, really useful. Again, it's definitely larger than a 24-70 and heavier as well, but not so much compared to like a 70-200. And if you consider that you might be able to leave that lens at home, or better yet, not buy it at all, this is a massive bonus to having this lens instead of a 70-200. But let me know what you guys are thinking. If you have any questions on this review or on this, we got some really cool stuff coming up. Hope you guys are doing amazing. Follow on IG if you are not already, and I'll see you guys soon in a new video.